Alright gang, welcome back. Today we're going to look at some 4-note permutations. Let's go. Okay, so 4-note permutations. What does that mean exactly? Well, all it means is just rearranging 4 notes. So a lot of times we do the typical 4-note sequences, like the groups of 4 kind of descending or ascending down a scale, and so on and so forth. But you know, they get a little predictable, and the truth is that you can actually rearrange 4 notes a number of different ways. I think the actual mathematical equation is like 24 different ways. So I'm going to make a little series just kind of exploring some of these, and I haven't even gone through all of these. I mean, it's just really vast when you think about it. But just even the idea that you can actually rearrange notes, because you know the thing is when you learn your scales and your arpeggios and everything, then you got to go about the business of building a vocabulary with that information. So these are great tools to kind of build up a vocabulary. And just a different way of seeing things that hopefully will spark some creativity. So let's take a look at our first permutation. Okay, so what I did was I just took a A minor pentatonic scale. This is just a simple example. And I just took 4 notes of that scale and I said, let's say if I did this. Now that's very typical. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to number these 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and then I'm going to change that order. Of course, you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's cool. That's cool too. But I'm going to rearrange those just ever so slightly, and this is just one of the first permutations that we can work on. All I'm going to do is I'm going to swap around the 3 and the 4. I'm going to make it a 1, 2, 4, 3. So it'll be something like this. And then the next one down the scale would be. Then the next one would be. And you just carry that down the scale. Okay, so that's just a really simple example that you can do with the pentatonic scale. Now the thing is I don't always play these like all the way down the scale. You know, I just use them in little bits and pieces. I think of them as almost individual little cells that I can connect together if I want to. Maybe I'll play 2 or 3 of them and then move on to another idea. So it's not like I want to get too predictable by going completely down the scale with it, okay? So let's take a look at what that looks like on our chart real quick. Okay, so here's the first example right here, and this is A minor pentatonic. This is exactly what I did, and you can see I'm just going down the scale. And I'm just thinking of the notes, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm thinking of them as 1, 2, 4, 3. And that's just kind of a little sequence I invented here. I started off with this. I said, okay, I'm just going to switch. I'm going to call this 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm just going to switch 4 and 3 around. 1, 2, 4, 3, 1, 2, 4, 3. And like I said, I don't always go down the whole scale. I might just put a couple of them together. I might even just use one of them. You know what I mean? And that just really kind of allows me to build up a vocabulary. And of course, you can, you know, just use your mind for a second. You can tell that, you know, this could be pretty vast. But let's hear what that particular sequence sounds like. I'm just going to mess around with it over an A minor track and, you know, just mix it in with some other licks and ideas. And hopefully you'll be able to see it hidden in there somewhere. Let's check it out. Okay, pretty cool. Like I said, I don't like to, you know, just do down the whole scale with that particular idea. Just throw them in there with some of my other ideas and everything just kind of blends together. But there is some organization going on. It's not just random stuff. You can hear ideas, and that's the most important thing. That's what separates people, is their ideas. I mean, we can all learn an A minor pentatonic scale, right? That's the easy part. The hard part is how we can put it together in a unique way. So this just gives you some tools for doing that. Now we could also do this with, let's say, a scale. So, all right, so I'm just going to use the typical kind of A minor scale. Just around that box number 4, as I call it, with the cage system, or around that E minor shaped chord. And let's see if we can kind of do that with this scale now. Okay, so let's say we just start from the root tone here and we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, like I said, we're going to flip 3 and 4 around, so it's going to be 1, 2, 4, 3. 1, 2, 4, 3. 1, 2, 4, 3. All right, so, you know, again, I'm not going to necessarily, you know, play this all the time. I'm just going to use bits and pieces of it, but let's take a look at what that might look like in the music. Okay, here on my chart, example number 3, I skipped one, so I will go back to that one. I started actually with a descending one, but I skipped here with the ascending one, so no big deal. But here's what I did. I just basically went up the scale. I started out from the root. I said I got 4 notes here, so I just switched them around. 1, 2, 4, 3. And so on and so forth. Now, you know, these can certainly sound very exercisey, but again, I'm not going to play them up and down the scale. I might do that just a little bit to get them under my fingers, but then I just want to let them flow and combine them with other ideas and, you know, see how that goes. So let's check that out over the track. Okay, I should also note that when you are practicing these, of course you might just start out practicing them as just 1/8 notes. I have them written as 16th notes for most of the examples. That was just so I could fit them on the page and you could see the fingerings and where they're at. But you want to explore phrasing with it too. You don't want to just kind of play 1/8 notes or 16th notes. You want to mix it up a little bit. So that's also kind of baked into my examples too. I've messed around with these to where now I'm thinking about phrases. And, you know, actually it's pretty simple, but it's pretty interesting because I'm not just kind of going up and down the scale. And I'm not using the typical sequency kind of stuff, like, you know, the typical things like diatonic thirds or groups of 4. Those are great, you got to know those, but we want to mix it up a little bit and explore. Okay, so we can also do this with arpeggios. So let's say, for example, we're in the key of A minor, and we can look at all the different arpeggios that are in the key of A minor, and we can think of them as 4 notes, right? An arpeggio, a 7th chord arpeggio, is 4 notes. So, for example, if I play an A minor arpeggio, or an A minor 7, I should say, that's 4 notes. So I can number those 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now these are obviously a little bit trickier, but you're going to get some bigger intervals, and the payoff is a little bit more for the work that you put into it. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to go 1, 2, 4, 3. I got to think about it a little bit because, you know, it kind of scrambles your brain a little bit, right? But it's something that you can always just throw in there. Like I said, I don't hardly ever play them consecutively like a sequence like that. Sometimes I'll just let them infiltrate my playing and hopefully I can get some interesting ideas out of it. So let's take a look at that one. Okay, so example number 4 here, you can see A minor arpeggios, and what it makes it up to be is, I'm thinking as 4 notes, but the intervals are going to be a 1 3 7 5 instead of a 1 3 5 7. And here's an example of some of those fingerings that you can go over. And I basically the same thing I just played. It's a little bit trickier. Now, if you know shell voicings of chords, now shell voicings of chords are like a 1 3 7. So you can just make a shell voicing. This is another way that you can think of this is, and then add the 5. So you can play it something like that. That's a great way to play arpeggios because you're not doing the typical kind of sweepy technique that you play, and you can really make a lot of music and diversify your sound just by scrambling some of these and adding them into your playing. So let's do a little bit of that and check it out. All right, so pretty cool. Those are just a couple examples. Let's talk about maybe one more. This next example and the last example on the page. We're going to just run it down a string group. That way it's not so compact inside of a scale pattern. And sometimes this can be a little bit easier way to kind of attain some of these and finger some of these. So what I'm doing here is I'm just looking at the diatonic arpeggios of A minor. So it would be A minor. Then it would be G7, then F major 7, and then E minor 7, and D minor 7, C major 7, and so on and so forth. So what we're going to do is, again, we're just going to number those as 1, 2, 4, 3. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to go. And sometimes breaking them down in the string groups, just kind of moving up and down the guitar this way, can be a little bit easier to finger some of these. Working them through a scale pattern can be a little cumbersome. So this is another avenue that you can explore. So let's check that out a little bit. Okay, so pretty cool. You know, definitely makes you want to roll up your sleeves a little bit, and it takes a little bit of practice, and I'm still working on it myself. It's a never-ending battle, but it's really fun because, you know, I'm really rewarded with some interesting ideas. And, you know, when I was younger, and I think this happens to a lot of us, we really try to fall back on chops because we think that's what's going to dazzle people. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing, you know, more exciting than watching somebody blaze around on the guitar. But you also got to have a vocabulary. You got to be able to speak a language. You got to be able to say something, and also something that's relevant to the groove and what's going on with the music. And that doesn't always mean you're going to be blazing around, so you got to have some ideas. And this is just one way of going about it. Now, you can do it with a pentatonic scale, you can do it with the scales, you can do it with the arpeggios of the key or of the scale. 7th chord, you got 4 notes there, and you can scramble them around. And trust me, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. Because, of course, if you do the math, you can rearrange 4 notes 24 different ways. So that's a lot to work on, right? But that will really start to build up your vocabulary. I'm still chipping away at it myself. I've been playing guitar forever, and it's just really fun, and it always, you know, inspires me and gives me something to work on. And, you know, I can build up my vocabulary and hopefully speak a little bit more of what's on my heart and what's on my soul. All right, so check it out. Let me know what you think. Of course, like and share and subscribe. If you want to get the tabs, you can go check out my Patreon page. Your support is certainly appreciated, and I'll see you next time around.